In any culture or any country that you travel to, it's not uncommon to find places where the war dead are memorialized and honored. A lot of times this comes in the form of memorials, or you'll see cemeteries that honor the war dead. Well, right now I am in Japan, Tokyo to be precise, and here they do the same thing that you would expect with the dead who have lost their lives in various conflicts throughout Japan's history. But here it's a little bit different. Not only do they honor and memorialize their war dead, but they also enshrine them as deities, as objects of worship. So right now I'm at a place called the Yasukuni Shrine, and today we're going to look at some kind of interesting practices here in this country, as well as a massive war museum that they have here on the site. As I mentioned, I am in Tokyo at the Yasukuni Shrine, and this is a place that memorializes the war dead of Japan, and there are over 2.5 million names that are listed here on things like what you see behind me, these lanterns. So all through here you see these yellow lanterns. They have a name on them, and they have the area that the individual is from. I've seen some from Nagasaki, some from Tokyo, all over Japan. So this whole area is designed to honor and enshrine, and as I mentioned earlier, be a place of worship for the war dead of Japan. We're going to go to the War Museum here in just a little bit, but first I kind of wanted to walk the grounds and show a few things that are here. Here is one of the monuments that you will find here on this site. This is a memorial for the escort ship crew members from Japan. The escort ships, which were known as kaibokan, I think I'm pronouncing that right, probably not. But anyway, these were small vessels that were tasked with convoy escort and coastal defense. They had anti-aircraft weapons on them and anti-submarine capabilities. But anyway, out of the 189 ships that were built, 85 were sent to the bottom of the ocean during the war, taking about 10,000 crew members with them. And this monument right here honors their memory. Here's another one that is kind of interesting. This is a monument to an individual by the name of Radha Binod Pal. He was a representative from India during the 1946 International Military Tribunal for the Far East. And among all of the judges, he was the only one who contended that the tribunal was illegal and judged all of the defendants as not guilty. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. And I guess you can probably understand why here in Japan he might be thought of highly and in their minds deserving of a monument. Here's one that is exceptionally sad. This is a monument to the war widows with children here in Japan. So there were a lot of Japanese men who left for war, who were never going to come back. And here we see this statue that was constructed in 1974 that depicts this Japanese mother with 3 children who obviously is going to have some hard times ahead of her. And then there's an inscription over here on the side. And the inscription reads, in English, it would say, "I owe my existence to my strong, strict, and gentle mother. Thank you, mother. May our sorrow never be repeated." Now, I know that we have some animal lovers who watch this channel. Here is a memorial that remembers the dogs and horses and carrier pigeons who were lost in Japan's conflicts. So here we see one of the dog. Here is the memorial to the horses. There were about 1 million horses that were lost in Japan because of war between 1904 and 1945. About 200,000 would die during World War II, which the Japanese don't call World War II World War II. They call it the Greater East Asian War. And then if we walk over here, well, finishing out the trio here at this monument, well, here is one to the carrier pigeons that were lost in Japan's wars. All right, so those are a few of the memorials here in this area. But these grounds are also home to what I'm told is one of the most impressive war museums in all of Japan, something called the Yushukan Museum. So we're gonna dodge inside and get our tickets and yeah, see how Japan interprets their military history in general and World War II history in particular. As you enter the museum here, the first thing that is going to greet you is probably the iconic fighter plane of the Japanese during World War II. This is a Mitsubishi Zero. The Zero first saw action in September of 1940 in China. The Chinese pilots were flying Russian-made fighters, and a squadron of Japanese Zeros shot down every single one of them. So it was a crazy lopsided victory. The Japanese didn't have any losses. Early on in the war, the Japanese Zero was a pretty darn good plane. It was very maneuverable. It had long-range capabilities, probably one of the best carrier-based planes in operation during that time. Now, by the time the war drags on to the end, it kind of falls behind. It doesn't keep up with the times. As a matter of fact, this plane right here would have had trouble keeping up with an American B-29 bomber plane. So Americans pretty much had dominance over the skies by 1945 and were bombing Japan at will. But anyway, yeah, pretty cool to see this right off the bat. Now this is kind of interesting. When you come to a war museum, you don't really expect to see a locomotive. So how does this connect with the Second World War? Well, this is a model C-56 locomotive, numbered 31, from the Thai-Burma Railroad. So this was produced in 1936 and was commandeered to the south for the war down in the area of Burma and Thailand. So it was one of 90 cars that played an important role in that theater. And then after the war, the Thai National Railroad made use of it, and then in 1977 it was retired and then finally made its way here. Yeah, interesting. Every artifact tells a story, and these two Japanese artillery pieces are no exception. I'm going to start with this one right here. What we are looking at is a 15 centimeter howitzer from a model 96. It was developed in 1936. And it says here that this gun belonged to the 1st Field Heavy Artillery Regiment, 4th Company, who fought at Okinawa. Now, prior to Okinawa, that company had fought in Manchuria. They had also been in Philippines, at Bataan. Okay, and then they ended up in Okinawa, where they pretty much got wiped out. So this gun was on display in Okinawa and was eventually moved here. Okay, now this gun right here is a 15 centimeter cannon, and it was also recovered from Okinawa. Specifically, this was operated by the 100th Independent Heavy Artillery Battalion. They again got wiped out. At first, it was helping to guard the Kadena airfield, and then got moved back into the hills on the southern part of Okinawa and was recovered from a cave there. And something that is quite crazy about this is if you look closely, all along this piece, well, there's some pretty intense battle damage that you can see. So here's some battle damage on the barrel. You can see it going on down, and then if we get back here, well, you can see some more battle damage. So the sign here says that this now serves as a memorial to all of those guys from the 100th Independent Heavy Artillery Battalion who died at Okinawa. As we progress through this museum, I'm guessing we're going to be seeing figures that loom large in Japan's military history. And we're starting off with a big one here. This is the uniform of Emperor Hirohito. So Hirohito is going to come to power December 25th of 1926. We actually visited his grave in a prior episode. And yeah, right here, they also have the cat badge that belonged to Hirohito. So yeah, this is really quite amazing to see a few artifacts that are connected to him. One thing that I'm excited about coming to this museum is learning about people that I had no prior knowledge of. And this painting here depicts one of the individuals that I know nothing about. It's a guy by the name of Prince Kidashirakawa Nagahisa, and this is his sword. So Nagahisa was an artillery captain who served in China and was killed there on September 4th, 1940. Yeah, so I'll have to learn some more about him. Many who are interested in the history of the Second World War have probably heard of the Second Sino-Japanese War. Well, before there could be a Second Sino-Japanese War, there had to be a first one. So the First Sino-Japanese War was fought from July 1894 to April of 1895. And here we see a few photos of a delegation of Japanese officials who escaped from Korea, which was kind of the source of the conflict between Japan and China. And this is a flag that they brought back with them. And when the war kicked up, this is really an interesting piece here, a bunch of women donated their hair so that it could be made into this rope, which was used by the Navy. What we are looking at here is the uniform of Japanese Army Major General Odera Yasuzumi. Yasuzumi was the only general to be killed in the First Sino-Japanese War, and as you can see right here, there's some damage on the uniform
from where he was hit in the chest by a shell from an enemy ship.
All right, so I just found out that there are parts of the museum where we can film and parts where we cannot. So there's going to be a large part of this museum where we're not going to be able to show what's in it, but that's okay. This is one of the parts where we can show what they have. And this section is focusing on the lead up to hostilities between the U.S. and the Japanese in World War II. And I always find it interesting to look at different pieces of history and conflicts from different perspectives, and this is no exception. So this is talking about the economic situation that Japan was in prior to December 7th, and talks about how Japan relied heavily on imports, especially oil. So like 90% of the oil that Japan uses is imported, and a large part of that comes from the United States. Okay, here this display is talking about the stockpiled resources that the Japanese have and how much they had left. So they had like 3 months worth of rubber remaining, 10 months of zinc, 15 months of lead. Then it goes, 9 months of aluminum, 11 months of copper, okay, and 24 months of oil. Okay, so Japan is in need of resources. This is something that is well known. And then the shift goes to Japan's quest for avoiding a war. And this, to me, is where it gets a little bit interesting. And then it goes on to talk about negotiations between the U.S. and the Japanese, between Foreign Minister Nomura and also Secretary of State Hull. And then, each one talks about all of these stages leading up to December 7th from the perspective of the Japanese. And like I said, it's kind of interesting. As we progress along here, they talk about the offensive actions of the Japanese in the Pacific. So, of course, there's the attack on Guam and Wake Island and the Dutch East Indies and everything like that. And then over here, well, of course, is the attack on Pearl Harbor. Now, we look at Pearl Harbor and say that it happened on December 7th, 1941. Okay, you can probably hear the words of FDR ringing in your head right now on his speech. For the Japanese, the Pearl Harbor attack is December 8th. Have to keep in mind we're on the other side of the international date line here in Japan. So for them, what they called X Day was December 8th. Okay, and then once the U.S. Pacific Fleet is knocked out, well, then they have a free hand to go and start invading all of these other islands. And what we're looking at here is a model of a Japanese Army landing craft. This is called a Daihatsu. So kind of, when you look at it, kind of similar in design to a Higgins boat. Yeah, so this is honestly the first time that I've seen a depiction or even a photo, to be right honest with you, of a Japanese landing craft. All right, continuing our look here at Pearl Harbor. And again, I have to keep reminding myself that I'm an American in a Japanese museum, so even though there are things that I disagree with, I'm trying to remain objective. And here's another one of the heroes of the Japanese. This is Captain Fusata Ida. He was on the aircraft carrier Soryu, flying a Zero fighter. And this is his flying hat, which he did not have on that day. But he was the leader of the second attack wave, and his unit strafed the Kaneohe airfield there at Pearl Harbor. And his aircraft's fuel tank was hit by enemy anti-aircraft fire. Here's a letter that he had written before Pearl Harbor. But anyway, he turned back and then crashed his plane into a hangar. And then also here, they kind of honor what are called the 9 war gods
of Pearl Harbor. So these are 9 of 10 men who came into Pearl Harbor on Japanese midget subs. So these were small submarines that were manned by 2 people, and 9 of the 10 guys who came into Pearl Harbor were killed. The 10th one was the first Japanese POW of the Americans, but they don't talk about him. Moving on now to Japan's expansion in the Pacific during World War II, we're looking at something that is honestly pretty interesting to me. So on February 14th and 15th of 1942, Imperial Japan's very first paratroop unit, which was commanded by this man right here, called the 1st Raiding Group, was dropped over a place called Palembang. This was a place in southern Sumatra, and you can see one of the uniforms of the Japanese paratroopers right here. But these guys went in to basically capture an airfield and also secure an oil refinery, and became known as the Divine Warriors of the Sky. Yeah, I'm going to have to look up and learn a little bit more about the Japanese paratroopers.
Here in this section of the museum, they have several sculptures and art pieces. So here you see a wounded Japanese soldier who is being evacuated by his friends. Here's the one that really caught my eye, though, because I didn't know what in the heck I was even looking at here. So here you see this figure in like some sort of a dive outfit, holding this pole with some giant thing at the end of it. Well, here's the explanation behind it. This is a statue of the Fukuryu Special Attack Unit. It says here, in the final stages of the Greater East Asia War, the Fukuryu Special Attack Unit was formed with boys as young as 16 or 17 to counter the Allied forces' planned landing on the Japanese mainland, using makeshift diving equipment and Type 5 anti-landing craft mines, commonly known as pole mines. Mounted on bamboo poles, they underwent harsh training to crash into enemy landing vessels from beneath the water's surface. And it says here that a lot of these guys died in training. So that is completely wild. So in anticipation of an Allied landing on the Japanese mainland, they were training up, again, as it says here, boys as young as 16 or 17 to get rigged up in these dive suits and then go down beneath the surface, and when a landing craft would pass over the top of them, well, they would hit it with that and obviously kill themselves in the process. Holy smokes, man. Towards the end of the Second World War, the closer that U.S. forces got to the Japanese home islands, the more desperate the Japanese became. And what we are looking at right here is an example of that desperation. This is an oka, or a cherry blossom. And you'll notice it looks kind of strange. These were used during the Battle of Okinawa. And the way that it would work is this thing would be strapped to the bottom of a Navy Type 1 attack bomber. And then as it closed in on the U.S. task force out off the coast of Okinawa, well, they would release this thing. It had 3 rocket engines located on the tail end of the fuselage. So they would power those engines, and that would give them a 9-second boost. And then, well, this became a kind of a kamikaze type vehicle that would be used to ram into the sides of ships. I have seen quite a few signed Japanese flags in my time, but holy smokes, I've never seen one like this. This flag is massive. I'm going to guess that it's probably maybe 8 by 6, if I had to guess. But it says here that this was signed by 750 junior high school students for the Ono Corps.
ONO. So I'm not too familiar with the Ono Corps. I'll have to look them up and do a little research. But yeah, that's interesting. Here in this display case, they have several relic items that have been recovered off of battlefields all across the Pacific that are connected with the Japanese, and I exercised a little bit of Google Translate skills. Now, Google Translate with Japanese is not the easiest thing in the world, so I can't do it with everything here because it like ends up, displaying the English words sideways and everything like that. But anyway, what we are looking at here are a lot of items from Burma. Okay, so here are some identification tags. I'm also seeing a piece of a flashlight and some helmet pieces, and let's see, there's a remnant of a gas mask. Okay, and if we go on up here, well, moving on, here are some items from Leyte Island. Okay, I'm also seeing some stuff here from Guadalcanal, and then they continue on and then have items that are displayed from Iwo Jima. So it kind of just follows the war along, interpreting things in the form of all of these relics. So what we're looking at here is a model of a Japanese I-36 submarine. And I'm going to admit that I don't know just a whole lot about this vessel, but what I'm reading is quite interesting. It says here that it was completed in September of 1942, and one distinctive feature of this submarine is it had a large storage tube on the front of the bridge that could have a small seaplane, a small reconnaissance seaplane kept in it. It could also carry aircraft that would be catapulted off of the foredeck. So that's kind of interesting. You don't really associate submarines as having those capabilities. Now, in the middle of the war, well, these submarines started replacing some of the guns on their aft deck with something called Kaiten torpedoes. These were basically human-operated torpedoes. So over here, they talk about the Kaiten torpedo a little bit. So here you can see this model. You've got this person who is operating it, and of course it is going to be used to be ran into American ships. And here in the museum, well, they actually have one of these Kaiten, not sure how you pronounce it, torpedoes on display. So yeah, Japanese, I don't know, it's interesting to me how, whether it's aircraft or waterborne vessels, lots of different things, or just humans on the ground, a lot of things that sacrifice human life in order to take out a few others. All right, we're throwing this in for my buddy Phil Bradley. Phil Bradley is an Australian World War II historian and author, specializing in the New Guinea campaign. And what we are looking at here is it says here, a Navy Model 3 8-centimeter high-angle gun. Okay, so we're looking at an anti-aircraft gun. And this one in particular, again, has a story to tell. This one played an active role in the air defense at the Japanese base in Samoa in eastern New Guinea. And then in the 1960s was collected and brought back to Japan. And then if we walk over here, well, again, this is another anti-aircraft gun that we are looking at. This is a 7.5 centimeter field anti-aircraft gun. It had a collapsible base and wheels. Okay, so it could be, this is a mobile anti-aircraft gun. And again, this one was also recovered from New Guinea. Specifically, it
was important for field operations at Wewak in eastern New Guinea. Yeah, interesting. Now, speaking of New Guinea, here's another piece that was recovered from the New Guinea battlefield. This is a Model 41 mountain gun. Japanese actually used these in the Russo-Japanese War, and the ones that they had left, they put into action in World War II. So it shoots a 75 millimeter round. As you can see, it's really quite small, so that would be well suited for the fighting in New Guinea, where it was like really mountainous and nasty. You want to have something that would be quite portable. What I also wanted to show, though, was this tank over here. Now, if you watched the series that we did on Saipan, well, you know that the largest Japanese tank assault of the Second World War occurred during the Battle of Saipan. And this tank was one of the tanks that participated in that tank assault. This is a Model 97 medium tank, and honestly, like, when these things went up against a Sherman, they absolutely did not have a chance. And again, this was in the Battle of Saipan, and after the war, the survivors of the regiment, well, at their own expense, had this tank excavated and returned here to Japan as kind of a memorial to all the guys who had died. These guys belonged to the 9th Tank Regiment. And then over here, there's a memorial that you can see. It says, "In memory of the 9th Tank Army Regiment, which out of a sense of honor and duty sacrificed its life and its entire immortality on this Pacific shore." All right, well, that was certainly interesting. Everybody approaches history with their own bias, and it's kind of interesting for me to come here to Japan and see how they interpret their history, and also how they interpret the Second World War. Yeah, some things that I would disagree with, but again, it's cool to be able to come here and kind of educate myself and look at things from a different perspective. But anyway, yeah, that was a little bit from right here at the Yushukan Museum.